stopped doing bottles here in 1963.
Why is that? Why is that?
Because it was more cost effective and easier to get it shipped in from major maltings. We only had a small site to do it in. We only use Scottish malt here. So you may or may not be aware that Bunahaben is a little bit of an odd Islay distillery because we do mostly unpeated whiskey over here opposed to smoking. So we get our unpeated malt and our peated malt from different places. So it's all in Scotland. So we get our unpeated malt from a company called Baird's. Baird's. They have several locations in Scotland, and we get our peated malt from Simpsons. Yes, different companies. And Simpsons are located on the border between Scotland and England, in a place called Berwickshire. Berwickshire. Yes.
And the company name was?
Simpsons. So all of that malt will be stored up there in the bins. We're going to do 3 washes per day, and those 3 washes, all at 8.5 tons of malt at a time. So that is going to travel through that wooden box up there. Above there is a de-stoner. That gets rid of any big pieces of stone, metal, glass, anything that might damage the mill. So parts of that malt will then go into our mill. Our mill is a Porteous mill. Porteous mill. We got it here on the 10th of August, 1964. So I'm not sure exactly how old the mill is, but Porteous mills were made around about the 1920s and the 1940s. So anything between 80 and 100 years old. So the purpose of the mill is to break up our malt. It has 2 sets of rollers. The first set is going to crack the first, the casing, and the second set is going to crush the rest of that grain. We are going to be left with 8.5 tons of this finer powder called grist. That's going to travel under the floor, up here, and into the grist bin there. This has hydraulics, and this will send it up.
So this is the one, right?
Yes. So from the mill, up here, into this. So we need to test the grist first to make sure that it's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick it into a little box. The box has 3 layers.
Where is it?
It's over there. I'll show you in a little bit. I'm just going to tell you about it first because you won't hear me in here. It has 3 layers, and on the bottom of those you have a mesh floor that's like a sieve, and it just filters out the finer sections. The top section will have husk, outer shells and casings, 20%. The middle section will have grits or middles.
Grits?
Yeah.
And the bottom one?
Flour.
Yeah. So it is a finer with a layer.
Yeah. So 20% husk, 70% grits, 10% flour.
Oh.
It's very important that that flour, yes, exactly. It's very important that the flour is about 10%. If there's too much flour, the mixture becomes too thick and it struggles to make its way through the pipes. If there's not enough, it won't hold things together well. So your flour is a binding agent. So I'll show you the box. This is a shape box.
흔드는 박스라고요.
And this is your 3 layers.
아까 말한 3레이어가 여기고요.
That is your top layer, the husk.
Yeah.
All of these little white specks are starch.
하얀 거를 starch라고 하죠.
And this is what we're hopefully going to convert into fermentable sugar.
저게 그 설탕을 발효시키는 역할을 하는 중요한 부분이라고 해요.
Second, the grits. 70%, and this is what makes up most of the starch. Most of your starch is in here. So in the husk level, the starch is a little bit bigger. That's why we must do multiple waters at higher temperatures, just to try and get those to convert.
아까 말했던 스타치를 여기서 걸러내서 그거를 조금 더 파이너하게 더 얇게 분쇄하는 역할을 여기서 하고 있다고 해요.
And then on the bottom, flour.
flour.
does the job a little bit quicker and is more accurate. These are just a little bit more historic to what the old methods would have been.
이게 그러면 이거의 축소판인 건가요?
So this one is the smaller version of the whole machine.
Yeah, so inside of there you're going to have all of that, but 8.5 tons of it. We have recently raised the prices of our core range, very, very small, 10% or less. We are trying our best to keep things as low as possible for the customer. However, there is constant new taxes coming out for us to pay. And because we have to pay more and more in tax, we're having to increase the price of our products.
부나하벤이 피트 버전이 있다고 하더라고요. 피트하지 않는 종류를 만들려고 들었는데 혹시 그럼 오늘은 소중에 피트까지 하는 과정에 이런 위스키가 있으면 이 위스키를 볼 수 있는지 아니면 아예 피트까지 없는 건지
We've heard that you guys also have peated whiskey and unpeated whiskey.
Yes.
Can we see both of them today? Or?
You can try both of them today. Yeah, we will have offerings available for you to have a look at.
For the production thing, can we also see the peated and unpeated as well?
Unfortunately not. It just depends what they're running through at the time. We're not told ahead of time what we're running through. We just have to kind of make a guess. But at this early stage, you wouldn't be able to tell very much of a difference.
When we see the peat itself, even if there's no production
We
here,
don't have any peat here on site. Because we don't do our own maltings, we don't actually do our own peat fires over here. So the only thing that I can show you is the peated whiskey itself. We just don't have any peat here to show you. So there's 3 distilleries on Islay that still do part of their own floor maltings. Floor maltings. It's when you do the malting on site. So the malt will be spread across the floor, and you're trying to convince it that it's springtime. So it will develop heat, and little sprouts will shoot out of the malt itself. That's called chetting.
Chatting is different with floor malting or is included in the
This is part of the malting process. So when the chips start, these little sprouts, these little webs will come out, and they'll tangle with other webs from the other bits of malt. We don't want that because it will end up like a big clump. So we've got shovels, you shove it into the ground and you turn it. And you're doing this every few hours. And this will keep the heat down, but it will also stop the malt sticking to each other.
So there's 3 places in this
Yes.
island. One is Bunahaben. And
No,
one
Bunahaben doesn't do it anymore. Bowmore, Lafroig, Kilhog. We stopped it in 1964, and that's just because it was a lot easier to get our malt delivered from elsewhere. Where we are on Islay, there's not a lot of people around. It's hard to get staff in to actually maintain that. So we don't have a malting floor anymore, and we just found that it was cheaper and easier to get it brought in from LA.
혹시 불더건지 아니면 여기서 기분 안 좋게 쓰이는 단어일 수 있으니까
If it was slang word, then you're not really
It's not going to be used as much because there's not a whole lot of floor maltings happening anymore. As well as that, there is better equipment to do that turnover for you instead of using shovels.
So is it impolite way to say somebody's multi-shouldered?
No, not really. No one really will have that condition anymore, hopefully. But that's just what the condition was called. It was called monkey shoulder, just because your shoulder would slump.
되게 감사한 위스키를 만들어서 시청을 만들었습니다. 되게 고마운 일을 하는데 오피셜 말고 어떤 용어로 어떻게 불러야 하는지 그런 분들을
다르게 불리는. We think that they're founder of the whiskey culture, and we like to appreciate them in a way because of them we have this whole kind of malting and the whole process.
Sure.
What would be the other way to announce them? Is there any other word that we can call them?
It was just a medical condition where one shoulder would slump more. There wasn't another term for it. That's all it was called over here. but no one really will have that condition anymore because there's better equipment now to do that turning for us. So when you go, are you going to Kilholman?
We might not.
No. Well, at Kilholman, they've got this really large piece of machinery that moves up and down through the malt floor, and that turns it for them. But we don't do any of that here anymore. The only distillery in Scotland that does all of its own floor maltings is Springbank.
Springbank.
Yeah. There's only 7 distilleries in Scotland that do any floor maltings. Every distillery almost goes to a major maltings company to do it for them.
그 전에 그 여기서 그냥 모션을 안 하고 이름이 뭐였는지 궁금했던
직업명.
직업명
What would
짱님.
be what would be the job description? What would be the name of the job?
It would be Maltman.
Malt?
Maltman.
Maltman. Just Maltman.
That's what they would do. So we haven't done our own since 1963. Not many places do anymore. So these commercial maltings companies, they do it on a large scale. So they have the malt inside of a drum, a big cylinder, and that will turn. Instead of being on the floor, it will be in the drum spinning.
구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정까지.